phoned you to say it was in. There we are.
Yeah, because it's only 11:59.
That's probably him.
Yeah.
We'll wait the 30 seconds, will we?
Yeah, meeting's in progress.
Good morning.
There he is.
How are you, Bob?
Good, Terry. Yourself?
Good. All right.
Good.
We're bringing this meeting to order. Any declarations or conflict of interest from anyone? Seeing none?
Nope.
Can we have approval of the agenda?
Just under new business, Mr. Chair, just want to give
Sure.
notification.
Oh, God. About, do we have an idling policy for our vehicles? Could we just put that on the agenda for the next meeting? Is that all right? Just do an idling policy for our vehicles? Idling, like, yeah, anti-idling, yeah. Yeah. If we can just bring that back the next meeting, I just want to, yeah,
Yeah, we do have that policy.
yeah. Just want to look at it the next meeting, if that's okay.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, so I have moved. Seconder for approval of the agenda.
Good.
Moved by
Yep.
Mayor, second by Trevor. Thank you. Can I have approval of the minutes from June the 26th, 2023?
Moved.
Moved by Trevor, second by His Worship. Any business arising from the minutes, previous minutes?
No.
I just have one question. And it had to do with, where is it? Had to do with the switch program. And we were just looking for, I don't know if you guys got it done yet, we were just looking for some background information on the differences made with greenhouse gas effects, and the impact that the switch program has been making.
It's in the minutes under his presentation.
Yeah, but I thought I made the, just a second.
It's on page 2 of the minutes. Do you have the minutes there?
Yep, I do.
Where Julian Boyle made the presentation, correct? Yeah.
Oh, you know what? It's been the wrong package. That's the one that was on the desk. That's why.
While you're doing that, Mr. Chair, are we looking at extending the program with PACE, or is there anything coming back on that?
So just on the city's reduction in greenhouse gas emissions through the switch program, just wanted to get a better understanding of our energy efficiency efforts that we've been doing through that switch program. Somebody was going to try and come up with some numbers. So that's not done yet, is it?
Mr. Chair, so the funding through FCM for the switch program, we anticipate is months away from completion. And there is a requirement for a report to be done to summarize all of the greenhouse gas reductions. We could give you something in the interim if you wanted it more immediate, or we could wait for a few months and give you a snapshot of the whole program.
This had to do with the presentation that was made last month. But that was mostly on jobs.
Economic impacts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we were looking for something maybe a little more impactful in reducing our greenhouse gas emissions. And
Yeah.
I assume, I think, memory serves me, it's a $9 million project, $9 million in funding for the switch program. And I think 7 of that's used so far, or 7.5 that's used so far.
Nick, do you know the more accurate balance on that? It's months away from being spent, that I know, maybe 2 to 3 months.
Yeah, the latest update is about 2 months of funding left, and it's about, yeah, I think it was 9.5 million in total, about 7.5 used up so far. Might be a little bit more than that. It's kind of picking up speed here now over the summer.
So we were just kind of looking for something that could show the impact that program has been making, if there's something that we can capture.
Would you prefer to wait till we are completed, or do you want something before then?
It would be nice to have just an update, if
Okay.
they can.
Yeah, like at next month's meeting.
Okay,
Okay.
thanks.
Yep.
Yeah, so Mr. Chair, just on that, just the last paragraph, the city could apply for additional funding from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. However, it would be conditional on the city having a plan for how the program continues without FCM funding. Did we? Because that was brought up by Julian.
Yeah, and I think we talked about that before, and I think what Jessica said was we have to show where we're going to get funding to continue with the program. If we get an extension from them, my understanding was we have to show how we're going to continue the program without their funding. Correct?
That's correct. So FCM would only give us more funding if we show how we're going to proceed without them. But where things sit right now is that Stratford, ourselves, Pace, and everyone have met with the province. Ultimately, this becomes a program that the province offers to all municipalities. So we're kind of at a standstill now, waiting to hear back from the province on whether it's something that they'll support us to continue.
Okay?
Thank you.
All right.
Mr. Chair, just
Yep.
back to the minutes of last meeting, where the city had put in the 250,000, is there any word back from the provinces matching that 250,000 for the stump removal program?
I have not got word on that yet, no.
No word? Okay. And for the, I have residents out in my ward asking, will it be extended for, like, I guess the list is full. Will there be a time period where more people can get on this list for stump removal?
My understanding is, so that's driven by the province. We're helping them, or we have been, and that was supposed to expire at the end of June. June 30th, I think, was the last sign-up date. Correct me if I'm wrong, staff.
There's never been a stump removal program or list. So people that were on a list were on a list for Fiona recovery for hazardous safety, trees leaning towards houses. So that's closed. I'm not aware of that being opened up again, but as of right now, there's no stump list.
Okay.
Until we launch a program and start accepting applications, we wouldn't start a list on that.
Okay, thank you.
So I think, Trevor, just to let you know, that's why we were talking about the possibility of I guess, a homegrown program that we could offer the residents for some help. And the ones that have to remove stumps from private property. Some of them are pretty, as you know, pretty big, pretty expensive. I've got prices from $2,200 to $3,000, some of the really big ones. So, haven't heard back. We moved this through our committee last time. We said we would be, let them know at the council meeting, the resolution would be coming at the next council meeting if we didn't hear back from the province for matching funds. So, right now, it's the $250,000 from the city budget is all that's in the account.
Okay, thank you.
So, Mr. Chair, could I ask, how long are we going to wait for the province? September, October?
I was just giving it till the next council meeting.
Good.
So we'll bring it to council, see if they want to move forward with the 250 we have.
So in the meantime, could we develop a Plan B? If we do with the $250,000 that, I think the chair was talking about providing $500 rebate or up to a certain amount. Can we look at some kind of a proposal that we could discuss?
I think the program that the staff put together is in our minutes. The program is what we were looking for. I think at the end of the day, Your Worship, if it comes down to more money, because once the 250 runs out, it runs out. It's kind of like first come, first serve right now. So if we happen to get matching funds, my understanding was this criteria would still stay in place. We would just be able to go farther. So at that point, I think that's a discussion council will have to have. Unless you're thinking something different than I'm,
Well, I think you may have to add more to it. The 250 probably won't do.
you mean more money.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if the province doesn't come on board, it's a council discussion.
So the council has to make a decision. Do we just stay at 250 or add another 100, 200? You can find the money in your budget there, Jessica. So that's what I would, but I'd like, so you're saying that we'll just go with the plan that's there on qualifications or to qualify for the funding?
Yeah, I think the work that's going on now, we can get a good idea of what the average cost is per stump removal. Right now, I think it's under $1,000 it's $200 rebate, and over $1,000 is a $500 rebate. So if you get to a large stump that's costing you $2,000, at least you get $500 back. If you're into a stump that's $500, you're getting $200. At least some help. So that's what we were looking for, and we also did say during budget time that we were looking for provincial government to match those funds. Last time I talked to them, they didn't say no. They thought that that's a possibility they could match funds, but since then it's been silent, trying to get an answer. And we have to move on this sooner or later. We're coming into July now, so it'd be nice to get the program moving, so.
So could you use a mic, please?
I was just going to add that it might be an incentive to the province if we did open up a program under the guidelines that are referenced in the minutes, if that's something that council approved. We could open up the program on first come, first serve, similar as we've done with flood protection and other programs, till the funds run out. If we get a really high demand beyond the 250, that would be the motivator for the province to come on board and say, okay, obviously this is much more significant than anyone anticipated, therefore this is our share of the funds. So I think getting an idea of demand would be really helpful at this stage to make the argument for matching funds.
For sure, yeah, thanks, Sue. Any other questions? Okay, we'll move into reports. The Capital Region Active Transportation Committee, Jessica, you want to take the floor?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this report is to seek council endorsement for staff to lead the formation of a Capital Region Active Transportation Committee. So just for some history, the mayor had an AT task force, which was fabulous and had a lot of great community members with a lot of input and knowledge. But there was feedback that the group lacked kind of decision makers and people that can make the rubber hit the road. So there was a recommendation that we form a Capital Region Active Transportation Committee with our surrounding municipal partners and people from the province and representatives from the community nonprofit groups like Bike-Friendly Communities and Cycle PEI. So we would reach out to them. So this is a proposal to form this committee. I have done some initial reach out to the surrounding municipalities in the province, and they've expressed interest in being a part of that as well. We've not reached out to community nonprofit groups to date, but if we had council endorsement, we would move forward with forming this, come up with the terms of reference collaboratively. I shared in the report a few bullets on some of the advantages of the group, which would be to collaborate on projects, share best practices, deliver region-wide community events and engagement, build on knowledge and professional development workshops and training amongst the group. So the report is looking to move this forward with your support.
Okay, thank you, Jessica. The only comment I have is I can't help but get the feeling that we're not really sure why we're putting the committee together and what the responsibilities will be if we don't have a terms of reference done first for the committee. It seems like we're going to throw a committee together and then we'll decide what we're going to do, as opposed to having that terms of reference and here's the responsibilities and now let's put the committee together. And I wonder, for me, I don't know, it'd be interested to hear some other comments, but for me, to know what exactly we want this task force to do, it'd be nice to have those terms of reference in place.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if I can just interject, I think that, Jessica, correct me if I'm wrong, you're just looking at something in principle of what we want to do. Then, I think that there's more terms of references. You just gave us a couple of samples, but I'm sure there are other templates out there that we can take from and that we can provide more substance to what we want to do under the terms of references. But, Mr. Chair, I want to stress that if you go west, Cornwall is doing a great job in how they're expanding their ATP. And now you go east with all the development with the Gray Group. that runs parallel to Highway 1. There's a lot going on, and I just think if we can integrate the three communities, and there is a will from the mayor of Cornwall, mayor of Stratford, along with their CAOs to make this happen. So, again, I think this is just, in principle, I support this in principle. I just want to see more, as the chair is saying, on what we should see in the terms of references.
Yeah, but I think a few years ago, and I think what you're talking about, they're going off, and Sue, correct me if I'm wrong, I think you might have sat on that Regional Active Transportation Committee where all these plans were put in place. And that's why, for me, it's nice to know before you put a committee together, what are they going to do? What is it we want them to do, as opposed to, listen, Philip, will you join this committee? And Simon, will you join this committee? And then, well, what are we going to do? Well, let's sit down and figure it out. Like, what is the goal we want to achieve first? But I know Sue sat in that regional active transportation committee, and there was a report done on it, and I thought that's what these communities have been following. Sue, you want to make comment on that?
Sure. I did notice that it does say that there's not any history, but there is a history, and that is the Regional Active Transportation Plan that was developed as a result of a group working together many years ago to develop all of the areas, including Stratford, Cornwall, and Charlottetown. And part of that plan that was put forward included the path we finally have in Hillsborough Bridge. I mean, that was a big part of that plan. So there was a steering committee put in place at that time that had representation from the three municipalities in the region as well as the province. So the province had different representatives at the table, and there was also, I believe, a couple of stakeholder groups, Cycling PEI and a couple of other groups on there. To our manager's point, the report does outline 4 key areas that this committee would look at. And I think basically this is the starting point for the terms of reference, is those 4 bullets that you see in the report. So from that, the terms of reference could include an enhanced plan. So you take the old plan that we had, check all the boxes of everything that's already been accomplished, and set new goals that will become a new and improved active transportation plan for the region.
So in other words, it would be a review of the Regional Active Transportation Plan and updated. Okay, and so, okay.
Mr. Chair, could I just add one thing, just to follow up with our Director of Community Services? There's also the Josh Underhay's plan that he went to, I think, this council. He went to the Legislative Assembly. And then there is Josh's brother that has the community cycling program, community cycling group. It was, what's the term? Bike-friendly community. It was the Charlottetown, so bike-friendly community. So put all that stuff, all those reports together with the history, because I saw that regional ATP report that you referred to, Mr. Chair, and put this together because, look, there's a tourism side to this where anyone that's looking at renting e-bikes or bikes can cycle to the west, to the east, and just branch off. So I think it connects also, Mr. Chair, to our great Confederation Trail, the Canada Trail. So lots of benefits here, and I appreciate that you've taken it this far. I'd like to see some community representation on it, but that's another debate.
So, so in my mind, there's plans already in place, and you're right, that Mr. Underhay was in to give the updated version of their plan, regional and city. So it's just more of a group that would get together to review the plans and see where we are with construction, because right now we're hooked up all the way out to Cornwall. We are hooked up with Stratford as far as the active transportation corridor. So I guess what's the vision or what's the plan at the end of the day for the committee, other than review and make further recommendations to their municipalities? Money?
Yeah, so I can add a few things. So yes, like Sue mentioned, I added 4 kind of broad statements in there about working together on training and knowledge sharing, fundraising for sure. I would love to see community events that are capital region wide, maybe instead of doing a biking Mayor's Bike Day. Maybe it travels through other municipalities and includes ours. I did speak to our CAO about it, kind of like chicken and egg, right? Do we start with the terms of reference and then form the group, or form the group and then create a terms of reference? And her recommendation was to not create that terms of reference without the group, because they would obviously want to have a lot of input into that. So we just developed kind of like broad overarching goals of the group, and then if the group was formed, we'd get into the nitty-gritty of what it is. But when I reached out to the people at the province in Stratford and Cornwall, I shared the broad statements like I shared with you about education and outreach and funding and planning. The regional AT plan that we have, pretty much the boxes have all been checked off on that. So region-wide, what are our next steps? And working together on that among the capital region, right?
And the funding comes from the federal government, right, to the Active Transportation Fund? Information, yeah, so it's not like the municipalities are going to come up with some funding, out in Cornwall or Stratford. So is that what we're talking about, is the greater Charlottetown area?
Yes.
Are we talking?
The,
Okay.
the whole area, yeah. And, Mr. Chair, just to give you just an idea, yesterday I took my e-bike out to the UPEI soccer field, and driving along which I can't wait till this University plan kicks in, University Avenue plan, because driving out University Avenue in the north, going north, it's not a friendly environment for a cyclist, I'll tell you. I had cars scraping up that far from me, and I'm not going to go on the sidewalk because the sidewalk stops at NASA. So it is, and that's the same on North Road. So this plan is to develop those areas that we have not developed yet, and I think there's a lot of potential. Where
Would
people,
that not be a plan that the departments within the city develop? Because that's an inner city street as
Yeah.
opposed to.
but it's similar in Stratford and Cornwall too, with the cyclers cycling, the cyclists merge with the traffic, the vehicular traffic, and it's, I want to separate it. However, that's a minute point. The regionality of working together and
Yeah,
to look
I
at
thought
funding.
the regionality was to connect different communities through active transportation.
Correct.
Which I believe is done. So now you're talking about municipalities with inside their boundaries of making those connections, continuing to make those. So I'm not sure what Cornwall would have to say about University Avenue, or Stratford would have to say about University Avenue, or Nassau Street, or any others.
No, I say it as a,
Those are within our budget.
yeah, I say it as a personal reflection of what's going on in the roads, just in Charlottetown. It's the same in Stratford and Cornwall. I think the interconnection amongst the three communities will provide a lesser carbon footprint on all of us. It provides actually a model or something that we can look or gear our efforts to make this a carbon-free or carbon-neutral community in the region of Charlottetown.
Okay, well, anyway, what's the
Mr.
committee
Chair,
want to
if
do?
I can just add to the mayor's point, I think to your concern, and I totally understand what you're saying with respect to each municipality has its own requirements of what it needs to do to advance active transportation. But one of the things that this Capital Region Committee can help elevate is standards as to how we work together to do traffic calming, how we make sure that the bike paths and the shoulders are the right width and the right markings, all those things we can do as a collective, I think, so that whether you're biking in Charlottetown, Stratford, or Cornwall, you're following the same rules of engagement as to how you're treating your cycling community. So those kinds of things can be worked on, I think, through this committee.
Yeah, and if that's in part of a terms of reference, then it's easy to see what the committee's going to do. I mean, makes sense. So, you're looking to move this off to council? Okay, anybody have any other questions? Bob, do you have any questions on that?
No, I'm fine with that, Terry. Thank you.
Move it ahead, and seconder? Moved by the mayor, second by Trevor. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You will probably all remember the creation of a strategic plan for public transit in 2011, which is out of date now. The face of transit has changed hugely since then. Ridership is way up, and we're looking to electrify fleet and among many other things. So we put a request for proposals out, and we had 2 bids. And we would like to get council to accept the highest scoring bid outlined in the report from Left Turn, Right Turn. And they would lead an update of that capital region plan along with our partners in Cornwall and Stratford.
Yeah, really look forward to this, because we have grown leaps and bounds, as you know, Jessica, so, yeah, I've got no other questions on it. To me, we go with the highest score, but anyway, any questions on that? Councillor McKinnon, or your worship? Councillor Drawn?
No, great.
All good, so somebody want to move it and second it? The worship moves it, Trevor seconds, okay, thank you. Thanks, Jessica. ICLEI, not sure what that means. Tried to look for that abbreviated, I couldn't find it. I see the mark I found, but, so what is ICLEI?
ICLEI is an organization that brings communities around the world together around climate change. I'm actually not sure what it stands for. I don't know if it stands for something in English or not, because it's international. Sorry.
Does anybody have any questions on this, or do you want to give a little rundown on it, Katrina?
Yeah, I wasn't sure if you were wanting to say more there or not, but I'm happy to give the report, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So the purpose of this report is to give you a little bit of an update on the approach that we're taking with the Climate Action Plan moving forward, as well as to seek approval to join ICLEI's Building Adaptive and Resilient Communities program, or their BARC program, as well as to become an ICLEI Canada member. So if you'll remember, we started work towards a climate action plan for Charlottetown. Sorry, my computer's having a moment here. Back in January, and we completed phase 1 of work with a consultant, and that phase was intended to do some background research, some initial public and stakeholder engagement, and really get a sense of where we're at and how we should approach the plan moving forward. So we got a final report from that with a number of recommendations. Based on the recommendations of that report, one of them was to approach the adaptation side of the planning through some kind of recognized and respected framework. And one of the recommended potential options was ICLEI's BARC program. So as you all may know, climate action planning kind of has 2 branches. They overlap, but they're also distinct in many ways. You have the adaptation planning and the mitigation planning. So in the beginning, we weren't quite sure how we would be approaching those 2 branches, but our plan at the moment is to approach them somewhat separately and do most of the mitigation planning in-house. So Nick is working closely with me on that because we do have that community energy plan that was done a number of years ago to build upon. But with the adaptation side of things, we have less of a starting point, and that's where the importance of having some outside expertise and a framework to work within is really important. So with that, we are recommending that we join the BARC program, which is a membership-based program. And we get a number of benefits for joining it. It does have a standardized framework, but it also is very customized to each municipality. So we get a dedicated liaison from ICLEI to work with us on a variety of areas. They assist with research, planning and facilitation of meetings. They help us to identify the different actions and vision statements. They help us to identify our implementation plan. They do some of the technical work around some of like the data analysis and the projections and the cost of doing nothing. And then, of course, we get access to their tool, which is the framework itself, and they help us with the reporting. And then on our side, it would be a matter of approximately 25% of a full-time staff time, as well as, of course, the costs, and then a fair amount of involvement in workshops and meetings. It would be a 12-month commitment from the time we start. So assuming approval moves forward fairly soon, we would hope to start in August. And yes, there's the core BARC membership, which gives us everything that I spoke about. We're also recommending some of the add-ons that they have that are optional. And this gives us a little bit more assistance, especially from the outset. They'll work with us to bridge that mitigation side and the adaptation side, because as I said, we'll be taking kind of that 2-pronged approach, but we want to make sure that they inform one another and are cohesive, especially externally.
The system has detected that a few lines are still connected to the conference and will attempt to disconnect them. If you wish to remain in the conference, please press *1. 15
Thank
Press
you.
star, Bob.
And I just want to note that part of the reason we're recommending
To
this
dial out, please dial
is,
the area code and number that you wish
it
to
will
connect to the conference,
eliminate the need to
followed by the pound sign.
work with a
Press star
consultant
to return to
on
the
this
conference.
phase, which I think has a number of benefits. It means that we get the expertise and the support that we need, but we keep it more grounded in staff and local knowledge. And I think that will help us to create a plan that can be mobilized more easily and has more buy-in. There's been a lot of good reviews from other municipalities that have participated, and
To
yeah, so we
dial
think
out,
it's a really
please
good
dial
option.
the area code and number that you wish to connect to the
And
conference,
the reason we're also
followed by
recommending
the
joining
pound sign.
ICLEI Canada
Press
is
star
because
to
we get a
return to the
20% discount
conference.
on the BARC membership fee by joining, and it's kind of a no-brainer. The cost to join ICLEI is, around, I think it's like $600, and the discount's around $4,000, so.
So just for anybody listening, the BARC is the Building Adaptive and Resilient Communities.
Yes.
Right, so when I first read, I kind of thought we were going off track a bit, but we're really not. Phase 2 was to go to a consultant or whoever to do.
Yeah.
So this sounds like something that this membership, I see there's a couple other communities that have joined on also, and it sounds like it's more of a made at home.
Sorry?
It sounds like it's more of a made at home
Yeah.
process to come up with a climate action plan.
Yeah.
And I know we budgeted 85,000, and this is 36,000, so pretty good savings.
Well, yeah, we'll probably
burn
need the
up
full
some of the other-
85,000 when you consider the cost. Like, that won't cover the cost of like meetings and engagement. So there'll be like quite substantial cost there. We may need some additional expertise on the mitigation side of things. Nick and I are still working together to kind of figure that out. We can do a lot in-house, but there may be the need for some support. So chances are we will use up all of that. But I think that the cost savings relative to a consultant, to be honest, like if we were to go with a consultant, we wouldn't have enough to do this plan at this point.
So Katrina, do we have a little bit of an idea of when the project will be completed, when the report could be done?
Yeah, the hope's for about a year from when we start. So about a year from now, if we can start soon, yeah.
Okay. So 2024, and that'll give us options of what to do to make improvements to, whether it's greenhouse gas reductions or whatever.
Yeah, the goal is to give us a comprehensive plan that sets our path on the mitigation side, so greenhouse gas reductions, carbon reduction, as well as the adaptation side, so how we need to adapt. Now, I mean, there will likely be some more work to be done after that, really on getting into the nitty-gritty implementation side of things. We want this to be specific and actionable, but just given the state of where we are in certain areas of climate action work within the city, some of the goals will inevitably be further planning in different realms. Maybe not within this department, maybe within other departments, but it will set that direction for how we move forward.
So that's what I was wondering, some of you not as educated as you guys on this, and I'm kind of wondering, okay, we've had the buildings assessed, kind of have a report what we're doing for buildings. We know we've got hit hard with Fiona, so does this encompass everything
Yeah.
to do with climate change?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Any questions?
I do.
Oh, that's a surprise.
I just want
Go ahead.
to answer your question. What is ICLEI? Local Government for Sustainability, International Council for Local Environmental Initiatives.
Thank
It's,
you.
based
I
out of-
did look it up, so I don't know.
Yeah,
Thank you for finding
and there are
it.
about 2,500 communities part of this group. So again, climate mitigation, getting more people on cycles, using EVs, that's all part of climate mitigation. Just like
How
the
many municipalities you say?
2,500.
Is that North America or is that
It
Canada?
says Local Governments for Sustainability is a global network of more than 2,500.
Global, okay.
Local and regional governments committed to
Okay.
sustainable.
Yeah, I assume that's ICLEI members as a whole, not specifically the BARC program, but yeah, who are members of ICLEI.
So it's good to be, had that international or that connection that we can learn
It
from
is,
others.
It is, no question.
But Katrina, I again, when you talk about mitigation, adaptation, so adaptation is like preparing for the next storm, right? Like, for example, Richard McEwen is buying or purchasing more backup generators for our lift stations. The Canadian Wireless Network would like to provide more backup generators for their cell towers. Because someone phoned me yesterday and he said, our cell tower service is out because some of the towers came down during Fiona. No, they didn't come down during Fiona. It's just they're not all working working up to par. So this is all part of adaptation. But climate change, we do have a climate action plan. Will we have specifics so that the public can just say, okay, where can I do my part to be part of a climate action plan for the city of Charlottetown? Yeah, I just want to find out,
Yeah.
people always ask me, okay, so what's this climate action plan? How can I do something that, yes, Lori and I purchased a heat pump through the FCM program, the Switch program. We updated our insulation and so forth, but I just need something workable.
Yeah, I'll speak to that a little bit. I think, the goal of this is to create a community climate action plan. So obviously us as the city can't do this alone. So a really important piece of this work is engaging with the general public as well as our key stakeholders. I think something missing from some of our current planning around climate action, although we don't have anything branded that way, obviously we have our community energy plan and things like that, is that tie to who's responsible. So, we need to work with our community partners, we need to work internally, and we need to delineate who's responsible for what. I think that this plan will be more targeted to the city and key stakeholders than the community. I think that it will lend itself to those who want to look for those things, but I also think that as we engage with the community, that will begin to take shape. I think it's important to provide guidance and education on where people can get involved, but I also think it's important to recognize the importance of us as leaders and organizations in the community as leaders, and supporting the community to do that. So hearing from them how they would like us to support them.
And Mr. Chair, I'm going to end up here or close by saying that a couple of weeks ago, I met with Mayor Mike Savage from Halifax, and look what's happened in Halifax, Hammond Plains, the flooding, the tornadoes. It's just ongoing. But the city, in the past year, have, for their climate action plan, where they want to see net zero by 2028, they've applied a 3% levy of property taxes directed towards climate change. Now, I'm not suggesting that, but that's what they're doing. Is that something that we can find out from ICLEI? What other communities are doing to fund?
Yeah, certainly. That's something that
That's what
we'll,
it sounds like the whole idea is, right?
Yeah, and I just want to put that out there so that we're getting that information.
Nope.
Anyways,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay. All right. Trevor, you good? No questions? Bobby, any questions? You're good?
No questions, Terry.
Okay,
Thank you.
we'll move on to 2 billion trees funding. See, the city was approved for 50,000 funding from the government. This is just information, I think, for council, correct?
sorry, we need a motion to join the BARC program.
Oh, sorry, okay, yeah, moved by the mayor, second by Trevor, yep. You're good. Okay, go ahead, Jessica.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the federal government has appointed the provincial government to distribute funding for their 2 Billion Trees program. And so the city of Charlottetown, our department submitted an application and were approved for close to $50,000 for this fall. So this is an ongoing program that we can tap into in future years. This is just for this upcoming fall season. We've asked for the funds to support 2 projects, one being community planting at the Acadian Forest site, which if you've been through after Fiona has been severely impacted. And then the second project being adding some tree cover and shade to the active transportation corridor along Riverside Drive. So the province and federal government would fund those 2 projects.
Thank you, Jessica. Just a quick question. So the 49,875 or the 50,000 from the provincial government to support federal 2 Billion Trees program. I'm not sure what that means. The provincial government's put the money in to support a federal government 2 billion. So does the federal government have a goal of planting 2 billion trees? Is that what this is about? Okay. Okay. All right. Is that, so the trees we planted in the spring of the year? No, that came from, that was a different program. Okay. Sorry. Any questions on that, anybody? All good?
Yeah, Terry, can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
I had asked before on the highway there, I guess from Brackley Point Road down to Mount Edward. I have some residents that, you know, there's a lot of noise there. They live right on the highway. There's no berm or anything there. So I was wondering about trees, and I think we talked about it a year or two ago that it was on the province land or something. I'm just wondering, is there any chance to getting any trees planted in that area? Could anybody answer that question for me, or?
Whereabouts was the location you're talking about, Bob? I didn't hear you.
It was from Brackley Point Road on the bypass down to Mount Edward. There's a bunch of houses there. There's a few trees, pine trees planted, but
Yeah,
I was
that's
just
all.
looking to see.
That's all provincial government property. So the
Yeah,
province has a nursery there. The province have planted trees along. I don't know if they did that stretch, but they certainly done the stretch on the bypass highway going towards the hospital on their side. We've done our side,
Okay.
they've done theirs.
So this program that's going that we're approving here, or is that on city land or is that on provincial land?
What part was that, Bob?
Sorry about that. I'm just wondering, like, is what we're asking for now, you know, down the two spots that we're looking to plant trees in, is that provincial land or is that city land?
Through you, Mr. Chair, so I can speak to that, Councillor Durand. So our proposal is to plant throughout the AT path, which we now maintain and manage. And parts of that will be provincial land and parts will be city land. So staff right now are working on the detailed plan of where best to situate the trees. And then we'll go to the province and make sure we have their consent to plant along the path where we would like. But I'm happy to take your question. I can't speak to that off the top of my head without looking at a map and looking into where you mean, but I'm happy to look into it.
Yeah. Mr. Chair, so
That would be awesome.
Councillor Durant, the area you're talking about is south of the arterial highway between Brackley and Mount Edward. So that'd be Lilac Avenue, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
just on the bypass there, yeah.
Yeah, but as the chair has said, the province did do a lot of planting out there by Grace Baptist subdivision on the arterial highway. So I think it's just a matter of us going back to the province to say, look. Yeah, and the MLA from the area is Susie Dillon now? Yeah,
No, that would be Zach.
Zach Bell, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that'd be great, Jessica, if
Thank
Jessica
you.
could look into that for me. Appreciate it.
Any other questions?
No, I'm good.
I just sent a message to Mr. Bell, because I knew that was his area, and it'd be nice if we had the other side of the road, buffering on the north side of the same area for McLean subdivision, Red Cross, as that part of the community there is building up, the industrial side of it as well, so create a buffer there on both sides of the highway.
Okay. All right, we'll move on to bike rack requests. We'll have Katrina up on the floor again.
Thank you. Yes, this report is a request from the PEI Community Fridge for the donation of a bike rack. So we have our bike rack cost sharing initiative that we do every year, where businesses and organizations can apply for the program, and we pay for half the cost of the bike rack. They pay for the other half of the cost, whatever it is that the bike racks are costing that year. So for this year, they cost $450 plus HST, so $225 plus tax each. So the PEI Community Fridge applied for that program, but along with their application, they requested that the fee be waived. because they are operating on limited funds. They've identified that it's a need. They don't currently have any bike racks, and because they're in a parking lot, the bikes end up kind of being left lying around the parking lot or in the road, and a lot of people are using their bikes to get to the location. So with that, we're just presenting that request from them and whether we would be willing to waive that $225 fee.
So what I'm wondering, Katrina, is the community fridge is located on Valley Street, across from the Parkdale Sherwood Lions Club, or bingo hall. And it looks like the complaint is that they come in and drop their bikes in the parking lot or whatever and do what they need to do in the community fridge. Will they use the bike rack because it's across the street?
No, the bike rack will be beside the structure of the community fridge. I believe it will actually be attached to the structure. Yeah.
Nope, that's good. I read it, Valley Street across from the Parkdale Sherwood Lions Club bingo hall. So, okay. So it's in the same area. The bikes pull up, park.
It'll be right next to it, yeah.
Okay. Anybody else have questions on that?
Green light, go for it.
Want to move it? Second it? Second it? Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. All right, rooted in art. Katrina, you're rooted in art? Tell us about it.
One more from me. Yeah, this is just to give you kind of the annual update on Rooted in Art. We've been doing it every year. I think this is our 4th year now. Yeah, every year since 2020. So it's our initiative where local artists create art installations and install them in city trees. This year we're planning to spread it around the city. We've done a couple different, more concentrated locations. That was our plan, was to spread it out last year, but Fiona got in the way and we ended up doing it down at the library. But yeah, we'll be working hopefully with 4 artists, and they will create installations, and we'll work with them to determine the locations of the trees as well, just to ensure that they suit the art installations that the artists are planning. So the call for artists is currently open if you're interested in promoting that amongst your networks. It's open until August 13th, so still another couple of weeks. And after that, we will have a selection committee select the art that will be installed, and then it will be on display from September 23rd to October 8th.
Any questions? So, Katrina, I'm just wondering, when it says create temporary art installations, what's that mean? Like, I kind of thought they were going to take some trees and make art out of the trees, but not this. So this.
No, so Doug has just recently launched a program like that where he has reclaimed wood from Fiona that they'll be doing a larger scale art installation. This one, I mean, if that was of interest to the artist, they could ask and we could try and coordinate that. But the goal of this project is really to celebrate our trees in our urban canopy and to get people out and interacting with those trees. So the idea is kind of to, we've had different projects over the year that have looked at different aspects. They've kind of celebrated the science behind trees. Some have celebrated their beauty or various different things, how the trees communicate. So there are these works of art that help the community to interact with trees in new ways and also give us an opportunity to promote things like our tree inventory and things about invasive species and that nature.
Perfect. Thank you. Want to move her to seconder? Moved by Trevor, second by His Worship. Okay, move on. Better Homes Neighborhood Selection. Nick, you're on the floor, buddy.
Okay, thank you. This report is just to update on the neighborhood that has been selected for the next round of the Better Homes Neighborhood Energy Project. So back in June, we sent out a survey. It was an online survey where people could nominate their neighborhood. Just provide us a quick paragraph of why their neighborhood should be selected as the next one. We had about 26 responses from across the city. And so everyone had different points, they're low income. Yeah. Low income, older residents in the neighborhood, that sort of thing. So we sort of went off of to pick neighborhoods that had the most responses, and so that indicates, a tight-knit group of people living in that neighborhood. And that's really the main advantage of this program is kind of the community involvement and neighbors talking to one another and that sort of thing. That's always kind of been a main point of this program. So I've attached a few maps to the report, just showing different indicators of other reasons to choose neighborhoods. The first map is the selected neighborhood, so it's Spring Park area just above Euston. The borders of this selected part have kind of been designed to incorporate the homeowners that responded from that neighborhood, just so that they can all then apply for the program that they nominated. The second map shows all the responses, but I've circled a few of the clusters of some of the neighborhoods that had the most responses. The third map is a Stats Canada map showing percentage of low income. So the higher the number indicates a higher percentage of households with income below 50,000. So basically, the darker the color, the higher the number, just higher percentage of low income houses there. And then finally, the last one is another Stats Canada map showing houses, percentage of houses that require major upgrades to their house. So that's not necessarily all energy related, but it's definitely energy is incorporated in that. Could be, house or the roof leaks. That could be an example, but also low insulation would be one of those things that's counted in that. So from that, this neighborhood that we've chosen kind of checks all those boxes as being lower income, needing upgrades, and also has had quite a few responses. So,
Sorry, just looking at the fourth map. So it's color-coded.
yeah.
So the one that needs the most renovations or upgrades, energy upgrades, is the darker color?
Yeah, that's right. And so there's kind of two maps you can get from Stats Canada on this. One needs minor upgrades, the other needs major upgrades. So this doesn't kind of represent the ones that need minor. This is kind of the major part in the city that needs kind of the major upgrades for sure.
So when you got that from Stats Canada, so when they're saying major upgrades, do they mean that, I don't imagine they're looking at energy efficiency, they're looking at the condition of the house, whether it's a new roof or the windows or
It'd be a little bit of that.
foundation, whatever, I guess.
Yeah, it would take into account all that stuff, and it's really based on, the person's response to the Stats Canada, whatever they kind of consider needs a major upgrade.
Okay. So the last paragraph kind of caught me. The 26 respondents, so that was total.
Yes.
Yeah, that's not great, 40,000 people. And I kind of wonder, though, the final paragraph, for the property owners in the neighborhood to receive a letter in the next few days describing the project, inviting them to join us for a neighborhood get-together, as well as an information session. I wonder if we shouldn't be picking an area within the city and then having that meeting in that area, engaging the, because I just don't think a lot of people, like anybody I talked to, that they heard about the survey, nope, what survey? And I mean, you're going to get that with a lot of surveys that the city puts out, I would think. But I wonder if it wouldn't be better to you guys go through, and one of the things that catches me is if we do a neighborhood, it's nice to move the program around the city as opposed to doing the same neighborhood over and over. And I think once you get into a neighborhood and people get talking about what a great program it is, then that generates some more responses. But using some of the data that you have, it'd be nice to move it around. It'd be nice to have that meeting. You can do the letters to that certain area, have the meeting, and then you should get a good response from that. I don't know, does any other response? Does anybody else have anything to say on that?
Again, how we determine wards 3 and 4, I guess there's a science to it. But the upper limit, the bar is at $50,000 income, right? Nick, is that correct?
No, there's no financial limit to our program. that's just, we use that as an indicator to maybe, to guide our selection of the neighborhood.
Right.
For some of the programs that we take advantage, like the winter warming, that kind of is incorporated. That's a provincial program that we incorporated in this program. That would normally have a limit of 50,000, I believe. But it's something that we include in this just as part of the program. And it's available to anyone.
Right. So if you look at, East Royalty, Hillsborough Park, a lot of single-family dwellings. You go to West Royalty, Sherwood, where Councillor Strawn represents. I think there's a larger area, but you've identified wards 3 and 4, and then we'll have a community meeting down at Desbrizay Park just to get some feedback or get some interested candidates on who wants to participate.
So
Correct?
the neighborhood get-together is more just a bit of an information session. Maybe we would get a few residents in that area signed up for it at that time, but it's also just a way to get the neighborhood together, get them talking. Again, the program kind of heavily relies on this sort of neighborhood community feeling and the kind of seeing that their neighbor's doing something. So when they're at these events, they start talking and whatnot. And so, yeah, so the first neighborhood get-together isn't necessarily getting much feedback, maybe getting a few people signed up. It's more just a way to get everybody in that neighborhood get together, have an event. There's the mayor's summer socials that are happening, so it would have to, not overlap with those. But it's a similar idea as that. And then the in-person event, like the evening event, would be more get everyone finally signed up, explaining the program in a little bit more detail at that time.
Yeah, and, Nick, I think it's a good idea. I just think that, 26 responses is not a lot out of, 40,000 plus. And I think the get-together is a great idea. I think it gets people talking. I think you can really explain the program, and maybe not everybody that comes to the meeting is going to get the, the free audit and some things, but it will certainly give them some education. And you guys, from your data, would have an idea of where we should be going, where the older homes are, where the ones that we could target. So if you had, I don't know, 50 homes that you guys usually do, you may want to put newsletters out to those 50 homes or go to 100 homes and then see who shows up at the meeting, explain it and so on, then you'll get your 50 out of that. I just think the educational part's good, to be able to go out and explain the program, explain the benefits of energy efficiency and how low cost it is and how much it can save you.
So maybe just a clarification, the 26 responses aren't signed up for the program. Those are the people that nominated their neighborhood. They haven't necessarily been taken and put right into the program. It'll be about 50 residents that are able to participate in the program. So I'm not sure if that was kind of unclear with that.
So then, Nick, having said that, so when you guys pick the area that you're going to do this year, how many responses would you have from that area?
About 5 responses, but again, in that the second map there, all the green dots are the responses, so they're scattered across the city.
Is that what you're considering the second map?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And if it's not in color, then maybe it shows up as kind of a lighter dot.
Yeah.
But so you can see there's a cluster of 5 down where we're talking about, and then there's 2 Sherwood neighborhoods that had a few responses that I've just kind of separated into 2 neighborhoods there. Our first year was in Sherwood, so we've kind of decided to maybe stay away from there until maybe a future year.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
No, that's good. I think as long as you're kind of moving it around, I mean, when you come back to another area again, that's fine.
Yeah.
It's just, I think you want to move it around, and the more you move it around, the more education you're doing. So, anyway, enough talk on that. Any other questions?
Nick, on the 4th map, it was cut off short. You get the color coding from light to dark blue. What's that indicate? Maybe that was in your backgrounder?
So yeah, blue and light blue map there, that's houses, the percentage of households that require major upgrades. And
That what?
That require major upgrades. And so the darker the color, meaning the higher percentage of households that need that.
And you get that from Stats Can? You can get this information?
Yeah, they've got, and in that
They can tell me.
in that detail, they've got a lot of information.
What?
They've got a lot of information that
They
you
got a lot
can
of data.
collect, yeah.
Wow. So blue is 12%, which means it's major need of. Wow, jeez. Okay.
But some of that map, I'm looking at it like out St. Peter's Road, it's actually farmland. Some of it, when it's out St. Peter's Road by Route 25, it's actually mostly farmland, but that's in dark blue, which is outside the city property.
Yeah, and so it's divided up by these dissemination areas, and so maybe there's 10 houses in an area, and 12% of those 10 houses, so even though it's a wide area, that needs to also be taken into consideration, I guess.
Go ahead.
Hold on.
Just to add on to what Nick's been explaining, so staff from Efficiency PEI and staff from Environment and Sustainability reviewed the submissions, and one of the things was to make sure we didn't continue to offer the program to the same residents. So we wanted to pick a new group of residents. So that was one of the screening factors. But the other piece is Nick has added on this extra element, which he's discussing today, as a way of trying to gauge community interest. So in previous years, staff took more time to pick the neighborhood without reaching out to the community. So Nick thought it would be neat to throw it out there to the community, say, hey, do you want to be a part of this? And just to sense if there was any really, key community members out there who would be good to kind of involve in this program. So we haven't launched really anything yet. We haven't started like knocking on doors and doing communications and engaging the community yet. This was strictly to add a new way to get a sense of community interest to help us pick the neighborhood. Now that the neighborhood's picked, we'll, do door hangers and letters and social media and all that to pick the 50 residents that will participate.
Okay. No, I thought I read in here somewhere where based on the responses, it was going to dictate next year and possibly the year after, going back to the same area. Which is what, so it was my interpretation of it, which is what we didn't want. We wanted to move it around some, so, good. Thank you. Sue, you want to say something? Okay. Anybody else? Trevor?
Just want to give an update. Councillor Duran, through the chair, just got a response back from the MLA Bell that he has asked before for trees to be planted along that berm, and the response back was no, but he is going to, just indicated he's going to go back and ask about getting trees planted there again, and he's going to ask about matching the funds for the stump removal program, and he'll get back to me.
Did you hear that, Councillor Duran?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Any other questions, anybody? Thank you. We'll move for adjournment. I have a mover in a second. Moved by the mayor, second by Trevor. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, staff. A lot of work. Just a lot of good reports.